Good afternoon, everyone. I am Danielle Ward, one of your hosts for today's edition of Chatter 15 Minutes of Fame. And I would like to introduce my beautiful co host, Claron Sharif. I was about to go into my own. I was about to go into my own. I was like, okay, meditation.
Sorry. Hey, everybody. I am Claron Sharif. Thank you for joining us again on Chatter 15 Minutes of Fame. What are we doing today, Danielle?
Today, we are reviewing the film, The American Society of Magical Negroes.
Yes.
Yes. Uh, I watched this film on a whim, and I was just the title had me.
Mhm.
Yeah, the title had me, and I watched it, and I was like, "Coran, have you seen this?" And she was like, "No." Like, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. So I'm glad she watched it, and I can't wait to hear what what she has to say about it because it's a little different. It is a little different,
It is. It is.
uh, but yeah. You want to say anything before I go right into that review?
Um, no, go right ahead. I will say I'm glad I watched it. I'll admit when I first saw it, I was like, what kind of foolishness? And it surprised me. It
Okay.
surprised me.
So when the movie opens, this is what's on the written on the screen. A magical Negro is a black supporting character. Whew, these bifocals ain't bifocaling. A
Yeah.
magical Negro is a black supporting character who exists solely to serve a white protagonist's storyline. Some believe that magical Negroes only exist in the stories. Others know the truth. So that tickled me. That tickled me because I consider myself to be somewhat of a magical Negro, but that's another story. After the first time I watched it, I looked at the ratings.
Mhm.
So I hopped on over to Rotten Tomatoes, and the critics. This is the consensus.
Mhm.
The American Society of Magical Negroes has a promising premise, but is too timid to fully engage with its most provocative ideas. And then the audience says the American Society of Magical Negroes offers some funny food for thought, but it plays things too safe to reach its full potential.
Hmm.
And now I can kind of see that. And I felt that the humor was so that it wouldn't be so heavy that people wouldn't pay attention, that if they lightened it up, that is what would get people's attention, you know? But
Yes.
after, I just really appreciated it because I feel like it was a collective talk, like the talk that, you know, Black families have with their sons. Like,
Yeah.
don't be running in the park with your earbuds on. Don't be running, jogging in neighborhoods like my son would do early in the morning. Because
Mhm.
whoever's looking at you is going to be different,
Yeah.
you know. They don't know what you're running from. Like, you can't just be jogging, one of those things.
Mhm.
But I felt like it was a collective call or community talk.
Mhm.
Um, where do I want to go next? I feel like the magical
Mhm.
that there's this conception that that Black people are kind of magical and
Mhm.
throw some razzle dazzle on it, whether it's fashion or music or whatever industry we're in.
Yes.
There's like a little bit of expectation. I feel like there's a little bit of an expectation there, and
Mhm.
that the whole supporting role that we play, um, like on screen, of course, mirrors real life. So everything, even though there was some corny humor in there, I was like, it really resonated with me, on how I move about in the world, and how when my son was coming up, the things that I had to teach him about how he would be perceived, that you have to be conscious of that, how you move in the world. Because people have told him, you're kind of scary. And he's like, I just exist. Like I'm just existing. How am I scary? Things like that. Uh, One thing that the head Negro, when she was giving one of her speeches, she says, our powers are collective. And there's just strength in numbers. The money that we put into whatever, our dollars have a big effect. So I think that movie was just like a nudge to American Blacks that, hey, if we want to see some changes, we have to do it collectively, come together as one mind and move that way.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's a shame that, you can't go out and jog like anybody else. But anyway, I'm about to go off on a tangent.
okay.
So for me, um, I overall like this movie. I'm cheating on my notes because I wrote notes too. Um, the opening scene I really didn't care for, or rather, it irritated me. It wasn't the directing or anything like
Hmm.
that. It was his apologizing for being in existence. Okay, I don't want to give away too much of the movie, but it also there were some corny moments. um, but overall, I really like this movie. I think it has a lot of potential. Um, but I found myself a little confused sometimes in trying to pull it all together to make it make sense to me. Um, a little bored here and there, but nothing major. I don't know if it was because I was tired or because it was a long day or what, but I did find myself getting a little bored. However, I was left with more questions. Did Aaron set out to do his job in making white people feel more comfortable? Did Aaron stand in his truth by voicing his own discomfort as a black man? Was Aaron wrong for saying how he felt about how he's treated as a black man? No, for me, he was not. And there were funny moments as well. And like you said, I think you put it well,
Hmm.
collective effort here. And we as black people could do the same. But I didn't like your job is to make them feel comfortable. Why should I make them feel comfortable? That's their own or that person's insecurities that they have to deal with because I look different, because my skin tone is different. All of us, different races, we all look different. People with disabilities, people with no hair, we're all different. But yet we find a way to pick at something or someone that looks different.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Hmm.
But anyway, beautiful cast. I so enjoyed David Allen Greer's performance. It was just flawless. Like I said, we were talking behind the scenes. It's like he just walked on the set and just, and the words came out. And are we done? Okay, I can go home now. Justice Smith, outstanding. Aisha Hines, what can you say?
Yeah.
Perfection. And Nicole Byer, oh my gosh, the afro, her voice, she commanded the screen. It was fantastic. But the ending leaves you with more questions. And it's like, is there going to be another after that? Is there going to be a
Mm,
second one?
I
I
didn't think
think,
about
I
that.
hope.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it was well done. So I would give this film 4 broken legs, minus me getting bored and a little confused. But yeah, I liked it. I won't say that I didn't like it except for that opening scene. But yeah.
I also would give it 4 stars. I won't give it 5 only because I think some of the corny parts were just a tad overdone,
Mhm,
just a
mhm,
tad,
mhm.
that's all. But I do think it is worth the watch,
Yes,
whoever is
absolutely.
watching. Just not a bunch, it's not just about magical Negroes because there's other people that the same things would apply to. Like you mentioned, people with disabilities.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes people are uncomfortable and don't know how to talk to or have a conversation with somebody with a disability, you
Yes.
know? So
Yes.
one thing that I think is so important, and I think it's one of the questions that you had, you said this film
Mhm,
left you with a few questions.
mhm,
He changed his own reality. He found his voice. So he went from being someone who was scared to take up space and made himself small
mhm.
so he wasn't seen or heard to finally saying, you know what, I'm tired of this bullshit. I said, this is how I feel. Don't disregard my feelings. I'm telling you how I feel for a reason,
Right,
you know,
right.
not for you to then take what I said to make it all about you, that whole thing. So I loved how he at the end changed his reality, which I think was one of the larger themes of this film is as a collective we can change it. We can change our reality,
Absolutely.
you know. Yeah, I do have a story.
Yes.
My son, so I have this thing, I get dreams or my son would call it you have one of your feelings. Well, I know something about to happen, and I might not necessarily know what it is. So
Uh-huh.
I was asleep. I was asleep. And I woke up and like sat up in the bed and I was like, something's going on. This was maybe 10 years ago, maybe about 10 years ago. Sat up in the bed and I was like, something's not right. And I looked at the time and I was like, it's probably Shane. So I just started praying,
Mm,
praying to keep him safe, whatever, because I didn't know what was going on. I called him, he didn't call me back. And I was like, it's one of my feelings. So
mhm.
finally, when he comes home, he comes into my room and he goes, Mom. And I was like, I had one of my feelings. I was like, what? He and his friend were coming back from the movies
Mhm.
right by our house. They see a body in the road. And so they're like, is that really a person? Is that a dead person? So they pull over and help. So these are two black men, and there's a white woman unconscious in the middle of the road. So, of course, his first thing is like, people are going to be like, did they do this? Are they the reason why this woman is laying unconscious in the street? Are they going to be seen as a helper? So, but they did, they pulled over. So his friend was on the phone with 911 and Shane goes over to check her and he's like, ma'am, whatever. Are you okay? She finally comes to. So he says that she gets up and starts and she's like, thank you, thank you. And he said it just got real weird. And she started like hugging him and like grabbing him and everything like that. And then turns to his friend and said something. I can't remember. It's like, you weren't trying to help me. You weren't trying to help me. And was like, got aggressive and was like pushing him. Now, all this is happening, and there were cars driving by. One person was filming. Another car was like, hey, you guys all right? What's going on? What's wrong with her? And this and that. And so he's like, everything feels wrong about this situation.
Mhm.
So a police officer comes, a female officer comes, addresses the young lady by name, and she's just like, get in the car. And she just says, hey, thanks, fellas. You guys can go now. But that could have completely gone a different way.
She addressed her by name, so
Yes,
she knew her?
she knew her. So Shane thinks that she'd so he's thinking that she was probably on something,
Okay,
on a
okay.
substance of some kind.
Mhm.
But yeah, but that could have totally been. Oh, but a white guy showed up. A white guy showed up before the cop got there and asked if they needed help, and they was like, "Yeah, stay your ass here. Like you staying, you out now, you staying." But there was relief when the white guy showed up.
Yeah,
He can vouch for whatever was going on or what wasn't going on. You know, that shit we got to think about.
yeah,
We have to think about if we're going to assist somebody. How is it going to look?
right.
you know? I
And
don't
it shouldn't be that way.
yes,
It shouldn't.
but that's all. That's my little Negro magical story.
Okay, well, I got a quick one. My son was at work, and this happened many years ago. And you know how when you cross paths, you're trying to get out of a person's way, you go one way, they go the other, and you
Mhm.
kind of doing a little dance. So that was going on. So this jackass physically picks my son up and moves him out the way. Yeah. And it's a good thing I wasn't there. Like we were talking behind the scenes. It's a good thing I wasn't there because I think my son would have lost his job. How dare you?
Mhm.
You have this, sorry, white privilege that you feel that you can just put your hands on somebody. Now, had it been his wife or
Mm.
anybody else that is white, it would have went completely different. But he told his manager, and it was, oh well, don't worry about it. Wait a minute, what do you mean don't worry about it?
Mhm.
He put his hands on me. That tells me you didn't want to deal with it. You didn't want to be bothered. It wasn't that important.
Mhm.
But if it had been one of your own, would you have reacted differently?
Yeah.
So yeah, and just went on about his way, and his wife went on about her way. Yeah, that really ticked me off, and I can only imagine how that made him feel less than,
Yep.
disrespected, you know.
Mhm.
Now I wonder if he had looked like, you remember the guy from Barbershop that's chasing down Ice Cube? And he worked for, was it Keith, David Keith? Oh God, I can't
Hey,
give him.
David,
But you remember Barbershop,
I
and
do.
he's trying to give him back the money or take some money from David Keith's character, and his sidekick, his security guy, big black guy. Now, if he had looked like that, maybe go back and watch it. You know
Okay,
what?
yeah, I don't remember that scene. Okay.
If he had looked like that, would you have done the same
Right.
thing? I'm
Yep.
just saying.
Yep.
So that's my little story. See, I'm getting mad all over again. This is
Don't
like
get
the
mad.
fifth time.
Don't get mad.
Okay, what's up? What's up?
Remember the opening? You gotta
That's right.
oh
Yes. So, but overall, good movie.
yeah.
Lots to think about, lots to consider. You want to bring it on home?
Yes. We just want to thank you for joining us on our latest edition of Chatter with our movie reviews. How many legs would you break? So drop in the comments, please, if you have seen this film. How many legs would you break for this movie? And are you a magical Negro? Are you a magical non-Negro? I want to know. I
Yeah,
want to know.
we both want to know. Yeah, absolutely.
Hit us
Spill
up.
it.
Yes. Hit us up in the comments. Have you had any experiences similar to these or where you felt like you had to be small or make yourself small to be accepted if you were playing second fiddle,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So thank
Yes.
you. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. Boo boo.